One of the biggest issues we as humans are facing these days is living these convenient modern lifestyles in bodies that were designed for a lifestyle from thousands of years ago. Have you heard of the fish story? It goes like this. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way who nods at them and says, "Morning, girls, how's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "Hey, what the hell is water?" Now, the point of the story is fish don't know they're in water. They're not aware of their realities, and neither are we humans. That is, unless you wake up to this fact. We're just used to how things are, not questioning the status quo of living a fast and stressful and unhealthy life. We think it's normal to always be busy and caffeinated, to consume a ton of information all day via screens, to live in small boxes that are in bigger boxes in big cities with artificial lighting, constantly planning and chasing deadlines, 40-hour work weeks, and constant stimulation. It's normal for us to have choices upon choices and infinite possibilities, to always be connected, to check our phone first thing in the morning and while we're on the toilet and waiting in the supermarket queue. We just take our modern ways of living as they are. It's normal, right? We're born into it. But looking at our human bodies from a historical point of view, this modern world is very unusual. Our biology is hundreds of thousands of years old, and our bodies aren't designed for these new circumstances. Our lifestyles have evolved a lot faster than our bodies, and our physiology hasn't been able to catch up and adapt as quickly. We spend too much time in activation mode, the sympathetic branch of our nervous system, also known as fight or flight, and not enough in rest and digest, the parasympathetic mode, which means not enough time recovering, processing emotions, connecting to our bodies, and connecting to nature. And so we don't realize that we actually live in a dysregulated culture. We're collectively programmed to live fast, stressful life. It's our unconscious default setting. This world and our societies do not create the conditions necessary for our nervous system to be in regulation and to flourish. It's impossible. Capitalism as an economic setup doesn't allow us to just chill and rest. And so how we live is built on systems which have fostered the perfect conditions for high rates of chronic health and mental illness. So many of us are simply exhausted. And we don't even notice it because we have normalized these fast-paced lifestyles and overstimulation. We're so disconnected from our bodies. And so we often don't even notice how exhausted our nervous systems and bodies really are, unless we burn out, engine failure. And even then, people think something is wrong with them. They think they're not resilient or strong enough, instead of looking at the world out there. As I said, we don't know we're swimming in water. Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." And so the question is this fast-paced way of living actually making us happier? What if instead of living faster, we focused on living deeper by living slower? What if we started noticing the water we're swimming in? What I find interesting is that the word stress has lost its meaning. We talk about it like we talk about brushing our teeth. We don't take its effect on our body seriously, and many of us even pride ourselves with it. Kind of like, oh, hey, look at how stressed I am. It means I'm a really good working citizen. But stress isn't just an abstract psychological event. It translates directly into our physiology through the endocrine system, which organizes our hormone production. And chronic stress burdens our nervous system and taxes our heart. So let's look at what an average day looks like for most of us. As soon as we wake up, we take in activating stimuli, we check our phone, scroll on social media, react to messages before even waking up properly. Then we stimulate us even more with caffeine and maybe a sugary breakfast. Then we go to work while listening to a podcast, and at work we stay in activation mode most of the day with calls and meetings and emails and clients. And after work, maybe we go and do an activating workout in the gym, watch some Netflix or YouTube at home, maybe drink a glass of wine or beer or smoke some weed to wind down, and then some more phone scrolling before we actually fall asleep. We barely engage in downtime, where we give our minds and bodies a break to truly rest and slow down. You see, the ratio of stimulation to relaxation is simply not in balance. Now, I personally used to be addicted to stress, like so many of us. I was talking fast, I was drinking lots of coffee and consuming a ton of sugar. My days were packed and busy. I was over-exercising, over-traveling, over everything. And wow, it was hard to slow down. Slowing down is tough for the most of us. And why should we, right? Fast is fun, it makes us feel alive, makes us feel important. But the problem is that there are some issues with this fast life we all live. And we'll get to that in just a moment. But to put it simply, we're used to doing and not being. Turns out, just being is not easy. It's why we pick up our phones 100 times a day. Not being productive and not consuming really is a challenge for many of us. We have unlearned to simply be and to go slow. But why? Well, as strange as it might sound, we're addicted to the doing, to stress and the stress hormones that come with it. It's what's familiar to our system. If busyness and stress is all we know, our nervous system can perceive slowing down as uncomfortable and unsafe. If I clench my fist for long enough, it's painful when I relax it. So chronic stimulation makes relaxation unpleasant, at least initially. So we constantly keep busy and distract ourselves because the present moment and slowing down feels unfamiliar and is a threat to our nervous system. Plus, many of us are unconsciously scared to slow down because it might mean we might be confronted with what we've been running from. And as you know, it's really hard to live a slow life and embrace being in a world where money rules everything. Now, I'm not rejecting capitalism at all, but as being a part of it and also benefiting from it, it's important to realize that our societies are constantly sending us the message that we have to do and produce in order to be worthwhile in our world. We're told not to rest, to always be working or hustling, and that slowing down makes us lazy or is a waste of time. And so many of us feel like we're not doing enough, but all of this is too much for our system to hold and will cause us to go into one of our 3 states of dysregulation and lead to constant activation in our bodies. So what's the result of this unconscious do way of living? The main issue is that our bodies produce too much adrenaline and cortisol, and we then spend too much time in sympathetic mode and not enough in parasympathetic rest and digest mode. This is what it comes down to. Too much activation, not enough recharging. Our bodies can take a lot until our 30s, actually, but eventually the wear and tear from chronic or unprocessed traumatic stress on the body and brain get too much. This is what's called allostatic load. The cup is full, but we just keep pouring. Meaning, there comes a point where our physiology struggles to get back into balance and our systems suffer. Our immune system can't do its jobs properly. We get digestive issues or chronic pain due to a muscle constriction. We might develop an autoimmune disease, develop high blood pressure, become diabetic, or simply feel anxious or depressed a lot. And the list is long, really. In essence, we become less stress resilient, and little things can tip us over the edge in terms of our mental and physical health. Our window of tolerance shrinks, and our capacity for stress and joy decreases. Another problem with living our modern fast life is that we dissociate from our body, and we don't hear its messages anymore. And we've also been conditioned to ignore its messages because we have learned to toughen up and be strong. Our bodies often force us to listen and slow down by getting a cold, or like me, breaking my wrist last year, for example. Some of these decelerators are subtle, but when we ignore the messages from our bodies for too long, the symptoms often intensify, or multiple symptoms layer on top of each other. My nervous system friend Conni likes to use the metaphor of the feather, the brick, and the truck. When we ignore our body's signals for rest and processing emotions and life's experiences, the more easily they will be able to ignore the various red flags coming from our body until it gets to the point of a full-blown health crisis or chronic disease. Life might first touch you with a feather, then hit you with a brick, and eventually it's like a truck runs you over. A feather might be the occasional headaches, a cold, a little back pain here and there, stuff that's easy to ignore, or we can just pop a painkiller to push it aside. But when life hits you with a feather, you might feel a little itch, but you just brush it off, you make no changes, and you just move on. If we don't pay any attention to the messages of the feather, a brick comes along. And the brick is a not so subtle reminder of the lesson that the feather was there to teach us. It could be unexpected changes in the workplace, an increase in pain in the body where the niggle used to be, a reoccurring health issue, ongoing painful relationship moments. When life hits you with a brick, it hurts. Now, if you still haven't figured it out, then you get hit by the truck. The truck is about a massive shift to life as we know it. An example of the truck might be a loss of your job completely, loss of a relationship, loss of a loved one. It could also be a major health issue. All of a sudden, we're forced to make massive changes to our lives. So if we're better tuned into the feathers and bricks by listening to our bodies, we can avoid a lot of the trucks. Now that we understand the problem with living a modern, unconscious, fast life, let's look at why it's worthwhile slowing things down. Why slow down? Well, the main reason is that when we slow down our lives, we give our nervous system the chance to actually do its job. It then has more opportunities to downshift and relax, which means we're more likely to stay healthy physically, mentally, and emotionally. Also, if you're in a healing journey from trauma, you will actually heal faster by slowing down. As we like to say, our nervous systems heal in slowness. You can't heal if you keep living a sympathetic life. I experienced this firsthand, and looking back, I could have saved myself a lot of further suffering if I had made more decisions to slow down my life. So in order to have a regulated nervous system, we have to live a regulated life. And I expand this to, in order to live a long and truly fulfilling life, we need to have a regulated nervous system, which requires a regulated, slow life. And lastly, in order to come back home to our bodies, we need to slow down. It's in a parasympathetic state where we experience things like presence, joy, connection, and generally feeling like everything's sort of okay. It's also where we have access to our inner truth and intuition. Now, here's the thing though. It's not about slowing down and resting in order to speed up again. It's not about resting in order to satisfy our capitalist system and be more productive. What it's really about is resting to heal our nervous system. It's about resting to heal our traumas. It's about resting to undo our societal conditioning. So what does it mean to slow down? Let's get more specific here. One of my teachers, Natalie Kuhn, says, when we decelerate, we actually catch up to the speed of ourselves and our bodies. Now let me say this again. When we decelerate, we actually catch up to the speed of ourselves and our bodies. In essence, it means creating space in our day and ultimately in our life. It's about doing less, not more. It's not about being unambitious or lazy or unproductive. It's about waking up from a long dream of being asleep. It's about cultivating ease and flow in the present moment without chasing the next thing and the next thing. It's about creating our own conditions to live a regulated life rather than relying on society and culture. The challenge is, it's not easy to live a slower life in this world. We have to constantly remind ourselves. We have to become aware over and over again. It's not our fault that our world is currently oriented toward overriding our nervous systems. And it's not our fault that we've landed in collective dysregulation without knowing how to get out. No one teaches us how to slow down and regulate our nervous system. But that is the most important step in learning how to find our inner peace in a world of constant information overload. As David Foster Wallace once said in a speech, it's about simple awareness. Awareness of what is so real and essential, so hidden in plain sight all around us, that we have to keep reminding ourselves over and over, this is water. This is water. In one of my next videos, I will talk about practical ways to help you slow down and live a more regulated life. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon. Peace.